The musical great David Bowie was born by the name David Robert Jones in London in 1947. As a teenager, he played in local bands that performed covers of popular rock and roll songs as well as blues songs. Bowie's early music received little commercial success, with songs like his debut single Lies of Jane and his debut album David Bowie failing to reach the popular charts. Disillusioned with his current situation, Bowie left the music industry for a few years. Towards the end of the 1960s, Bowie came into contact with Lindsay Kemp, a dancer and a mime. Kemp's influence on Bowie led to Bowie's music focusing on folk style and psychedelia. This is apparent in his first popular release, Space Oddity, that was received warmly in both the United States and in the United Kingdom. Although Bowie's second album, released in the US as Man of Words, Man of Music, was not as successful, Bowie again reached popularity with the release of his third album, The Man Who Sold the World, in 1970. He sharply contrasted the folk feel of his previous works with a heavy rock style, and focused on themes of paranoia. While on tour for the album, Bowie developed the character of Ziggy Stardust as a successful method to create a popular onstage personality. His subsequent albums, Hunky Dory, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust, and Aladdin Sane all utilized this personality and made Bowie a leader in the glam rock genre. However, Bowie soon struggled with separating his personal life from his onstage character and began experimenting with drugs. In 1973, Bowie officially retired the character and moved to a new style of music.
In 1974, Bowie moved to the United States, settling in Los Angeles. Diamond Dogs, released the same year, was a combination of Bowie's signature glam rock style and an Orwellian depiction of a post-apocalyptic world. Around this time, Bowie's cocaine habit developed into a debilitating addiction that would plague him for the next several years. In 1975, Bowie recorded Young Americans, which exhibited soul and funk influences. His interest in the predominantly African-American genres led to him being one of the first white artists to perform on Soul Train. Bowie released Station to Station in 1976, further developing the funk sound and introducing the persona of the Thin White Duke.
In the late 60s to the early 70s, we start to see a transition in rock as it evolves into a popular rock style, also known as the New Romantic. This was arguably the peak of David Bowie's career as he dominated this new pop-styled rock. David Bowie stood toe-to-toe with the Beatles and the Beach Boys during this time period, who were also the top rock bands all within the same style. He was the jack of all trades, as he could play a variety of instruments, including the piano, guitar, and the saxophone, all while singing and putting on a show for his audience. Some of his recognizable albums during this pop phase include Low, Heroes, and Lodger. David Bowie fled LA to escape the drug scene and settled in Berlin with his wife Angela. During the stay in Berlin, these three iconic albums were created and were known as the Berlin Trilogy.
He began working with Brian Eno on the first album of his Berlin Trilogy, titled Low, released in 1977. The album featured heavy use of synthesizers and took inspiration from krautrock bands such as Neu! And Kraftwerk. It marked a significant change in musical style from the funk he had been producing before. Low was minimalistic, ambient, and experimental, and was later regarded by critics to be one of his greatest works. Released later that year, Heroes comprised the second part of Bowie's Berlin Trilogy. By this point, Bowie had broken his drug addiction, which was reflected in the triumphant guitar wail of the title track. The album was electronic and ambient, but evoked a positive artistic message, as opposed to the often melancholy Low. Lodger, released in 1979, rounded out the Berlin Trilogy with a return to more typical guitar-based rock music, but with influences from world music and non-Western scales.
The next phase of Bowie's career was his electronic phase, which lasted from about 1992 till 1998. In 1993, Bowie released his first solo offering since his Tin Machine departure, the soul, jazz, and hip-hop influenced Black Tie, White Noise. Making prominent use of electronic instruments, the album, which reunited Bowie with Let's Dance producer Nile Rodgers, confirmed Bowie's return to popularity, hitting the number one spot on UK charts. Bowie continued to explore new directions on The Buddha of Suburbia, released in 1993, a soundtrack album of his music composed for the BBC television adaptation of Hanif Kureishi's novel. It contained some of the new electronic elements introduced in Black Tie, White Noise, and also signaled a move towards alternative rock. The album was a critical success but received a low-key release and only made 87 on the UK charts. Continuing on his electronic experiments, Bowie came up with the quasi-industrial album Outside, released in 1995. The album achieved UK and US chart success and yielded 3 top 40 singles. A move that provoked a mixed reaction from both fans and critics was Bowie's choice to choose Nine Inch Nails, an industrial electronic band, as his tour partner for the Outside tour. Visiting cities in Europe and North America between 1995 and February of 1996, the tour saw the return of Gabriel as Bowie's original guitarist. After being introduced into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1996, Bowie's next experiment would be incorporating British jungle and drum and bass, which were forms of music that emerged from early rave music in the UK, into his album Earthling, released in 1997. It was a critical and commercial success in the UK and US, and 2 of the singles from the album became UK top 40 hits. The Earthling tour took place in Europe and North America between June and November of 1997.
David Bowie's neoclassicist period lasted from 1999 to his death in 2016 and was marked by the singer's retreat from the spotlight. The period started with the 1999 release of Hours, an album which featured the extensive use of live instruments and marked Bowie's departure from electronica. In 2002, Bowie released the album Heathen and performed in the Heathen Tour, and in 2003 he released the album Reality and performed in the A Reality Tour. During this tour, Bowie suffered a heart attack and was forced to cancel the remaining tour dates. After the heart attack, Bowie reduced his musical output, collaborating with several artists on songs but not recording any albums himself. After receiving the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in early 2006, Bowie announced he was taking a year off. However, he performed later that year at a benefit concert in New York in what turned out to be his last stage performance. As Bowie fell out of the public eye, it seemed that his musical career was coming to an end, but in 2013, he surprised the world when he released a new album entitled The Next Day, which debuted at number 1 on the UK Albums Chart and became the fastest-selling album of the year at the time. On January 8, 2016, David Bowie released his final album, Black Star, to widespread critical acclaim. The album was noted for featuring many lyrics related to death. Just 2 days later, the revolutionary artist passed away at the age of 69 following a battle with liver cancer. After his death, Bowie received a huge spike in popularity, breaking Vivo's record for most viewed artist in a single day and catapulting 19 of his albums into the UK Top 100 Albums chart. At the 2017 Grammy Awards, Bowie posthumously received 5 awards, including Best Alternative Music Album. David Bowie is considered to be one of the most influential artists of all time, and his legacy of creativity and innovation will most likely continue to impact the music industry for years to come.